So is there an opportunity for me to
So I'll have to find out.
go somewhere else and do it?
Yeah. And
Please find out what that is.
Councillor Stanbury, are you still okay for the 23rd of July? You said that was...
Well, I'll have to cancel the thing that I was going to be doing instead.
Yeah, so that's a definite confirmation today that it's definitely on.
Is that 7?
7 or 7:30, we don't know yet.
Oh, right.
So, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Reinstate the standing orders again. And 18, health and safety proposal. To consider quotations for health and safety service provider.
This was as a result of something that former councillor Ren Contrade started to investigate, and these two companies approached me and came in with 2 quotes for health and safety issues. Service proposal.
So this is to put together policy and procedures or to execute it?
And execute it. They would be the person responsible for health and safety in the whole area.
Anyone got any opinions? Any points? Chris?
I kind of get a bit nervous at the amount of things that get thrown under the umbrella of health and safety nowadays in the nanny state, and I would want us to be clear that we were looking at having policies and procedures about legally essential health and safety and not, I use the term, nanny state stuff. Otherwise we will become Arlesey Health and Safety Council. Rob, just a concern, if anyone else shares it.
I think the only thing I was going to say is I think it's quite expensive. And if this is a route the council want to go down, you can get people that do health and safety in H&R. Not that I'm advocating to do that, but I'm just...
I don't really understand why we need this. If it's something that we can't do ourselves.
Historically, no. That's the honest answer, isn't it? We've not got this right at all.
Is that because we were unable to do it, or we just didn't bother?
Can of worms.
We didn't do it. We did do it very well, and a solution to ensure it gets done is to outsource it. And I'm quite a fan of outsourcing myself. Obviously it's got to be properly defined and cost effective.
I was going to say, it seems very expensive.
It's in a 6-year plan, isn't it? 5-year plan.
I'm just doing some time.
What's that?
£2,832 for the 60 months.
Is it per annum?
For the 60 months, yeah, it's what it works out. For 5 years. I'm actually a fan of training staff. We have outdoor staff who can be trained to be outdoor health and safety. We'll have ultimately, when we get sorted out, we'll have a clerk full time. And if they're not trained, they may well be trained. But I'm a fan of training staff. It's not difficult, it's common sense.
I don't dispute that, but is it cost effective? Are our staff maxed out? Will we need to get someone else on board? We need to have a bit of a feasibility study perhaps? Because £289 a month isn't a great deal. It's certainly not. It will cost us more to employ someone.
Oh, is it? Sorry, yeah.
So I'm not averse to training if we've got the capacity and the ability to do it. I'm not sure we have.
There is a communications strategy working party feedback.
And in general, I can come along.
Sorry.
Could we,
This proposal also,
Sorry, Chris.
No, I didn't know.
Needed. Yeah.
What risk are we trying to mitigate with this work? Then if it's a huge risk, £3,000 might not seem like a huge amount of money, but if it's a small risk it might not. So what are we actually trying to mitigate here? It's more of a question really for the council to consider.
Well, we've had 2 issues, haven't we, in the last year, but I think they're pretty much one-offs. I don't think they're likely to be repeated. We've got the playground being monitored at least now. Actually, would this allow us to swerve the cost of the playground reports? Should do something.
Still, it's well, they've seen you'll inspect them, have they?
Right.
Not for that, they can't for that money, can they?
But I doubt it.
No, this is a health and safety inspection and policy management shop. It's not anything specific. They're not going to come in and point at your dangerous cohorts.
We're basically we're gonna give you a manual,
Yeah.
all the background work, we're gonna do all your risk assessments, it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
We'll just make sure they're up to date and you're up to date with legislation.
But they're not actually going to do any physical
No.
inspection. They're just going to say you need to be aware of risks, health and safety risks in your building.
Well, there will be an installation visit, so that's just to ensure that we've applied the processes. I'm just reading one here. And then there'll be annual visits. And something they call priority area visits. Oh no, that's in year 3. Okay, yeah, so this service would appear to be annual visits.
Includes the Bay Area and St John's Road. Doesn't include the recreation area.
Sorry?
Initial visit, initial visit, 3 court premises, council office, cemetery, and the Bay Area and St John's Road.
Year 1.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Second.
This second one, this is Peninsula, isn't it? Does that include HR?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask, Mick. It's
It
got
looks like it does, doesn't it? It
It's
says here
HR.
that ongoing automatic updates.
and tax. I mean, it seems to be a hell of a lot of duplication of everything we're already doing here.
Should be doing.
Well, should be doing, obviously. But we're certainly running payroll and sorting out our tax, aren't we?
Yeah, I think this second one is both. Proposal for the provision of employment law, yes it is. So that Peninsula cost £2,800 in employment law, business safe consultancy.
So this is on the front.
Oh.
It's not
So
really
it's
health and safety, it's business safe.
And
Is the issue or risk that we don't have confidence that we have the correct procedures in place? And if that is the case, would it be more cost effective to get a consultant for an audit, per se, of the current status, to feed back to us to say, these are the main areas of concern that you need to address? And it may well be that if we get a qualified clerk on board and you train them, focus on those key points as the priority actions when they're on board, the risk is mitigated. An ongoing service plan would perhaps seem, to me, to be superfluous if you've got staff who can manage and deal with it.
I think it's,
I'm wondering if we can, I don't think there's a short-term risk here. I think we need to do something long-term, but I think, like you say, the 2 previous occurrences were one-offs and probably less to do with policy and more to do with individuals involved. I'm wondering if we could mitigate this short-term because we've already got an HR committee in place that Leslie can raise any pressing HR issues she's got to. Can we use that committee to cover any ad hoc health and safety stuff that comes up in the meantime until we get a long-term capacity?
in principle, but I'm not qualified to do health and safety. But
Can we ask, Leslie, have you had any health and safety training? Have you got any qualifications?
Not health and safety, no.
Training.
No.
But
Only
we,
common sense.
picking up on Councillor McGregor's proposal earlier on, Leslie could undergo health and safety training, which would be a positive step forward. If you wanted to, of course.
Given the history, I think it'd be prudent if we got some risk assessments done of our key premises as well. I like Andy's idea, one-off risk assessments, independent risk assessment with qualified people, and then an update using a consultant to ensure our procedures and processes are robust, and then training of staff for us to manage that on an ongoing basis.
What do we think?
Personally, I think if we'd have had a health and safety risk assessment 6 months prior to the beginning of the 2 health and safety issues that this council has had, it wouldn't have shown up those issues. The thing that would have addressed those issues would be to have had a clerk who was health and safety trained and actually implemented that training. And neither of those issues would have arisen. So I'd still support Councillor McGregor in that I believe our own staff's training is the answer.
Yep. Sounds sensible.
How do you feel about acquiring those skills? Should we talk about it privately?
It might just be time. Oh, you know, I haven't got the time to train.
So we do have for your information, what was it, 30, you did an extra week this month. So we've got to keep an eye on the load we're applying to Leslie at the moment.
We've got outdoor staff, have we not?
We have, yes.
Could we not initially start with our outdoor member of staff? You could be trained to deal with doing risk assessments outdoors.
Well, yeah, I mean, Andrew is trained to do rostral inspections.
Yeah, but I actually do risk assessments on the work that he does with his trimmers and his hedge cutters and his this and that and the other, and he's handling a few and so on and so on. If he was trained, he could deal with a lot of the outdoor risk assessments around your outdoor sites, and then in the interim, we're obviously going to be applying for a clerk. Hopefully he's got some qualifications, or is willing to take some qualifications and help for some training. It would be a start, it'd be a positive start.
I also think, I mean, I agree with all this. I think there is a risk, for want of a better word, that we may not even have proper processes and be following standard guidelines for notifications around the building, perhaps, and having a plan, a training plan, which, you know, is not obligatory, but it's good practice to have. So I think those things are the kind of things you perhaps need to have audited, in addition to sending people off on training. Because if you, as an employer, if you're not taking the responsibility to have those things in place, which are perhaps taken for granted elsewhere, you know, you could fall foul of the law. And we're no experts, so getting someone in, just have a quick look, see, well, what are your policies, what are your procedures, you know, the lone worker thing, I think it's cropped up in the past, all those kind of issues.
So we have 2 solutions here that are more than health and safety. And I know with Peninsula you get insurance, but if we follow their processes, and if we ever find ourselves in trouble, their insurance covers the payments. So there are some hidden benefits in there, and it covers off HR as well as health and safety. Or we go for develop this ourselves. What do we think the realistic timescales are before we can determine what the requirements are of the clerk, either promote or recruit, and then get basically these bases covered? How long is that going to take us?
I think this document that we need to go through implies that it would be at least into September, doesn't it?
It does.
So this comes back to, are we sufficiently comfortable with the state of the nation for what, 4 months? Let's say 6 months.
How does Leslie feel? Do you?
I mean, there are risk assessments in place, but they have not been updated, or they weren't last year.
got procedures and everything.
There are, yeah, there's a lot of procedures and policies and risk assessments in place, but they've not been reviewed regularly.
Well, I think the fact that you've got them is a good thing.
The difficulty is the health and safety policy refers or delegates all authority back to the clerk. And in this case, we're saying our clerk in the interim is
So it's a
not
case of
qualified
capacity then?
and doesn't have the training. It's a bit of a vicious circle, really.
Anyone got any suggestions?
Well, I'm going to propose that I'll go along with what Andrew suggested. We get somebody in initially just to have a look over what we have at the moment and see where we're at, and then give us some sort of report back on what we've got and where we need to be.
So this is your risk. Identify the risk.
Yeah. I'm wondering whether it's worth actually getting that same person just to do some risk assessments for us at the same time, training our staff. This is how one's done. So getting the skills transfer at the same time. If that's not going to cost too much. If we're getting someone to quote for that, why not get them to quote for doing the risk assessments for us, and then we can use those templates going forward as well.
I can't go with these quotes because they're not similar.
No,
No, they're not.
and they're not what we're talking about.
It's a one-off job of work, I think.
This one is, can CBC help at all with this? Have they
I
got,
forget about CBC, seriously.
they don't have any sort of...
They took all the people that knew what they were doing and got rid of them so that no one knows what they're doing. That's what Councillor McGregor told us.
But they don't offer any...
We need to get all the one of those that have gone and knew what they were doing.
Well, actually, they've taken them back as consultants.
Okay, focus. So we have an amendment proposal on the table, and that's, Andy, you're saying that we should get people in to do the State of the Nation review of our policies.
I would expect 2 days' work or something to come in, assess.
I think we need to get a price because we're not qualified to judge how long it will take.
Well, okay.
Yeah, so let's get quotes for doing that, and do you say risk assessment and training?
Risk assessments, get the risk, because Leslie or the office may not have time to do those risk assessments,
Yeah.
so we're potentially carrying, we might not be complying with laws and regulations in the meantime, because we haven't done those risk assessments. Get someone to do those risk assessments for us, get a quote, see how much it is for us then to consider whether it's worth doing that, and at the same time, while they're doing those risk assessments, our staff could shadow them and get some skills transfers in terms of how to do those risk assessments. And then potentially we can use those templates going forward, the ones that they provide us, and the checklist of things they check for.
Mr. Chairman?
Get a quote for that, and worth considering.
Could they initially review the ones that we do have first before they go ahead and do new ones?
I thought that's the first one.
Yeah, that's the
Where
first
we're at.
one.
Yeah.
I feel the proposal has taken us around in a circle we've covered. We have discussed the possibility of Leslie undergoing some training, but we've said that it's too much on Leslie's plate at the moment to do that. We've now got a proposal that says do a risk assessment at the same time, carry out some training. We either can do training or we can't. Can't do it as an add-on to another, you know. I don't want to say Leslie's got a lot on her plate and can't do it, and then through the back door stitch her up with some training. I don't think that's fair.
I think
If we do a risk
it just
assessment.
needs somebody to look at what we've got
I think the
and
proposal
to
was...
tell us whether we need to do that.
Well, the proposal was also to get some training in place, but also if there was stuff to be done to get the person to do that. So Leslie would be trained, but wouldn't have to have the burden of updating all of the documents at the same time. So hopefully the training would not be too onerous. What would be onerous is updating and maintaining those documents.
Okay. If I can make a pragmatic proposal, if you allow me, that we have, we go find a company or a consultant that can audit the current policy and find out what state of the nation is. You know, are they acceptable, not, okay? And that will give us a gap analysis, so we'll know what does or doesn't need to be done. And part of that to give us a quote on how to close that gap. Okay? And hopefully the same company, I don't see why not, then stick around and do a risk assessment. Okay? And then we deal with what that reveals. At least we will know what we need to do to become compliant and where we're at. Okay? So there'll be a job of work that's getting done. So we'll come out of this knowing what our policies need to be reviewed. And from that we can decide whether it's a 3k a year solution or we re-instruct or go to the market depending on how much work needs to be done. Our policies exist. Chances are they were fit for purpose at some time. The delta between then and now may not be terrible. We don't know. Is that okay? There's a proposal. Then I'd like to second it.
Can I just make a point on that? You've mentioned, and we've mentioned companies and consultants. There's a body that I've heard of called the Health and Safety Executive. Does that body not provide this service as opposed to going to a consultant or a company who charges to take your watch?
Anyone advise? Anyone know?
I mean, I've just heard of it. We've been threatened with it before, so they should be the experts, shouldn't they?
I don't think they do provide.
Do we know? Do we know?
I think they would advise us to find consultants to do it.
Yeah, I think they probably want to stay independent from that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so that's my my proposal, and I'd like to second that. Okay. Those for? Anyone against? Abstaining? You cancel the proposal, right? Okay, everyone happy? Everyone know what we just discussed, what we decided? Okay. Communication strategy working party to receive, to receive an update on the communication strategy party. Consider a proposal on initial ongoing public communication. So 19, that's we have an email. Oh, here we go. Yeah. This is a view, sir.
Yeah, so hopefully you've seen the email I sent around late last night, unfortunately. Essentially, a small group working party formed to look at a wide range of communication issues and the general topic. Split that essentially into external and internal. One of the concerns was we need to improve the way we communicate internally within the council. So far that's not been considered in detail. However, 3 issues regarding external communications have been looked at, and you've seen those hopefully. The first one is identified was that the council website and Facebook page need to be more effective. We need to make better use of those, and that perhaps requires some attention. I'm not an expert on web, but I know John and Jason have looked at that and suggested there may be ways to improve that. So a proposal associated with that is for 1 or 2 members to work together with Leslie and the other office staff and the IT and web support provider to identify ways of improving that such that it meets the needs of being more responsive and more flexible. And potentially with allowing a budget of expenditure up to £150. Not quite sure what that buys us, but it seems like a reasonable sum to get going rather than have to come back to council again and incur delay. So that's the initial proposal regarding the website and Facebook. I want to cover these one at a time. If there's any questions on that one at all.
I don't think 150 is going to be enough. I think if you look at the invoices we had earlier, one page was £49 for one page to change.
So, I was looking for John. Between us, do we have So between us, do we have the skills to take over the whole website?
If it was designed properly, yeah.
It's WordPress.
Yeah, John knows WordPress, I know WordPress.
I believe it's WordPress. So the only issue then would be if there's any plugins that we need to buy licenses for and things like that. So that's just a quick conversation with the developer. I think if he did hand over control of all the pages, we would lose the warranty, or rightly so, he would be anxious that we might break it. But if we get control, then it wouldn't cost anything. Just the time.
Okay. Well, I guess the budget is key aspect of the proposal is for a number of members who've got experience in this area to go and work out what it is we need to do in association with the office staff and the developer. So I understand he's a pretty amenable kind of guy. It's quite supportive, isn't it? So yeah, I put that as a proposal. I don't know whether there's anybody who particularly, I know John has said he's happy to, and Jason's in the as well, if there's anyone else.
I'll second the proposal anyway.
Okay, alright, those four? Anyone against? Any abstaining?
Is this for the whole or just that?
It's just for the first proposal that we start looking at the website.
John, Jason and Andy.
Not me. No, I'm not aware.
So, John, Chris, Chris Livermore, yes. That's fair.
Jason. Yourself?
No.
Just three.
The second issue that we identified was that we've been in post now for over a month, and perhaps because of the Facebook and website and other sort of constraints we've got, we haven't necessarily been getting the message out of what we're doing to residents as effectively as we could and should. And you'll have seen the text that I proposed as an initial message to go back out to people on the website, on Facebook, and hopefully and ideally using the On the Button magazine. There is an opportunity, I believe, to get July's print copy if we make a decision tonight on that. So I'll put that as a...
I'd just like to say that you've put at the bottom our contact details, so on www.Arlesey Town Council, that is only for people who use the website.
Yes.
So we need some other contact people who don't use computers. You know, it's no good putting it on the button for those people and then saying you to contact us, you've got to go online.
No, understood, and that is one of the challenges we have. I think if you're using a printed media, that would take up probably half the page. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but that would be an additional cost implication.
But we need to, there needs to be another contact detail there that's not via the internet.
Do we currently have our own contact details on our website?
Yes.
All of them?
There's a few photographs missing.
Because historically, I can't remember, but historically there was some information that councils didn't give their address, I believe. So, but personally, I don't see why we shouldn't give our address, our email and our telephone number. I personally think we should all give that publicly, and I don't think there's any excuse for not making ourselves contactable by the public. In the previous regime, I know that didn't happen. I don't think addresses were given out.
We need to stay on topic. So this is a communication. That's fair enough, but what do we think to this communication going electronically, at least, on the button, at least, and we need to extend the contact details with the office phone number? I think that's all we can do, isn't it?
But where do you post our details? Is it just in the office?
It's on the outside board, inside board. I'm not sure, they might be on the big outside notice boards as well.
And if somebody writes a letter to a councillor, you'll put it in their intro.
Well,
Yeah, so-
it depends whether, if it's not marked private and confidential, it will be opened, and if it needs urgent attention,
Yeah.
will be dealt with.
But
If it's,
so the announcement could say, or you can write to any individual councillors at the town council.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable compromise amount. And then maybe in the Arlesey newsletter, say, you could have 2 pages of all of the contact details of all the council with photographs.
It does have our phone numbers, doesn't it? The newsletter.
yeah, and it does have phone numbers on the website as well.
Yeah, we just
But
need to
only
do
the
more of the
ones-
paper-based stuff. Okay.
Could I just make a point? With the council newsletter, how often